All right, hello. Welcome back to the second paradigm. This is B, and I'm the being that David has been channeling for 6 years, almost to the day, at least publicly. We'd love to be able to start by welcoming you to this particular transmission and settling in with you, finding a place of peace within your heart, the center of stillness, the place within yourself where you understand that things are going to be all right. Taking a few deep breaths, finding this place within you, and settling in. Now, as you begin referencing this stillness within you, you may be able to feel that this way of viewing things isn't collectively accepted. You may feel that there's somewhat of a change between the typical way of thinking, the typical day-to-day consciousness, and this pocket of peace. It's important to be able to understand and sort of call out this difference. One, because there's a massive divide currently in the larger collective between these very similar energetics. There's a massive divide between a sort of frenzied panic underneath the surface of a veneer of everything being just fine, and this small sliver of maybe things are genuinely going to be okay. Maybe Earth has a future. Maybe I'm personally going to be okay. Maybe I'm not going to be completely financially ruined. Maybe my children or other people's children will have a future. Maybe Earth, humanity will continue to exist. It's a fairly small sliver, actually. Most of the current consensus frenzy is that everything is going to implode in some way, shape, or form, that things genuinely aren't going to be okay, that financially things aren't going to be okay, that there may be some sort of war in the future or some sort of collective frenzy, some sort of collective turmoil that makes things legitimately not okay. And maybe Earth and humanity doesn't have a future. We'd say this is by far the most common way of thinking right now, even though it's not the most common way of speaking. Most people aren't articulating these thoughts and feelings externally because it's better to be positive in this same collective frenzy. It's that veneer of a smile. Everything is going to be okay verbally, but internally and emotionally, there's this feeling that maybe things genuinely aren't. For most people, there's almost a sort of split, a sort of psychosis, a double layer within their psychology. And as much as they try to stay within the positivity, their genuine belief is that things are not going to be okay. There's a destabilization happening within your larger collective. And perhaps the more we speak about it, the more you're able to feel this within your own psychology, or to be able to recognize this happening in the psychology of those around you, in the world around you. At the same time, there is this small sliver of what we could call peace. There's a small place within you where you know that everything's somehow okay. And there's this small sliver within the collective where the voice seems to be, things are going to be just fine. Now, logically, this doesn't quite make sense, because logically it seems as though things genuinely aren't going to be okay. If you follow the trends of what's happening, it seems as though things are going to go catastrophically wrong. So how to reconcile this is something that many individuals are currently trying to parse through. People are trying to update their worldviews real time to account for this odd paradoxical feeling in the air that everything is wrong, everything is going to fall apart, but somehow there's just a little piece of me that says things are going to be okay. And these are the odd, paradoxical feelings that have individuals turn inward and go toward more spiritual frameworks. And you have two predominant spiritual frameworks out there in what we'd call your collective field, or your collective consciousness, as some people call it. One is this sort of New Age idea that we are the ones we've been waiting for, that once consciousness awakens, once enough people realize that they are everything, once enough people realize the power of their consciousness and their ability to manifest through their thoughts, then the world will spontaneously become better, and that's how you're going to be okay. The other view is a more traditional view, and that there's some sort of external divine force that's going to save you. The most common in the Western world is Christianity, that Jesus is going to come back, that there's going to be a physical return of an ancient figure, and that's going to save everyone. That's going to be the thing that makes everything okay. What we'd love to be able to do here in this particular transmission is speak to those who have the inkling within them that neither of those things are true and are having trouble articulating that fine line in the middle. If it's not me and we, and it's not some external divine force, how are we going to be okay? And how do I know that this is true somehow? We'd love to be able to put some words to this, to be able to perhaps articulate a feeling that you've had for quite some time now. It's important to be able to find some sort of reprieve or some sort of ability to make sense of your world, or it's far too difficult to start to get incredibly cynical and start to suppress your own intuition that things are going to be okay. It's far too easy to start to believe that sort of consensus stream that says everything is going to chaos and I need to prepare as quickly as possible to protect myself and my family and those I love before everything falls apart. So let's start to validate this intuition within you that things are going to be okay, and start to tease apart some of these more common worldviews, and let's find within the energy, so to speak, let's find within this intuitive understanding if we can find some words to articulate this feeling in the air. First and foremost, it's important to be able to understand that your intuition is accessing something external to you. And this is something that much of New Age and mainstream spirituality seems to forget. That it's not just your higher self or future self, it's not you that you're accessing when you're jacking into light. When you were honing your psychic abilities to be able to plug into the light, into truth, into wisdom, you are plugging into something that's external to you, that's higher than you. There are larger, higher pieces of divinity that are the source of that wisdom, that are the source of that truth. And when you know that, then you're not so alone in this world, and it's not so up to you here on the ground floor. Because if you've noticed, individuals on the ground floor have a very, very hard time making sense of reality and have a very, very hard time finding a consensus way to move forward. Everyone seems to disagree rather substantially. Some of this is by design, and we want to be able to acknowledge that there are dark forces here, actual darkness, actual evil, sure, but darkness meaning turning away from that external wisdom. Darkness in a fairly traditional sense. There are beings here very much in control of major aspects of society that want nothing more than to sever the connection of humanity, not from themselves and their own power. That's a very New Age, mainstream spiritual idea. That's a cover for what's actually happening. The truth is, darkness wants to sever you and all of humanity from this external wisdom, because this external wisdom is the thing that your ancestors called God. It is the thing that creates the ability for individuals to be genuinely sovereign. And this is this paradoxical spiritual worldview, seemingly, that resolves much of what's happening. Because you can feel within your being that it's somehow not quite resonating This idea that there's an external authority that's going to come back, save everyone, and it doesn't require you. You can somehow feel that that's wrong. You can also somehow feel that it's not within you solely. Humanity can't save itself spontaneously. But also, humanity is not going to suddenly be saved by some external savior. There has to be something in the middle, and that something in the middle is plugging back into light where you can be truly sovereign as an individual soul. This is where you have all of your own unique gifts. This is where the truth of yourself comes back online and you understand what you're actually here to do, not as seen by the dark hierarchy, as we call it, not as seen by the systems of the world that are very much controlled by dark beings, not by the collective current, not by what's most popular, not by what will make you the most money, not you defined by any of these external things, but you defined by your own soul, the actual essence of your being. You becoming that actually requires an external divine wisdom. You have to be able to plug back in to the larger network of light to be able to find yourself and reorient to the truth of what light actually feels like. And this is the relationship between you on the ground floor and divinity. This is how things were always meant to be. Because when you plug into divinity, when you access the wisdom of light itself, you're not given rule sets to follow. You don't become a little sheep that's disconnected and waiting for a savior. You actually find the truth of who you are. You actually become more of an individual, have even more opinions, and at some point along the journey of being prepared and sort of initiated back into yourself, you then have the ability to bring through a divine intelligence to earth. These sorts of deep personal revelations can only happen by plugging into an external divine authority, so to speak. There's an external wisdom that you could call God that helps you find more of the truth of who you are. And this is where lots of things actually start to resolve. Because the answers are sort of in you already. But there's also some very traditional religious ideas in there where there is an external divine wisdom that actually leads you back to yourself. And there is evil. There is darkness. This is, quote unquote, Satan's world. There are many of these ideas within both mainstream spirituality and religion that resonate as true. And if there was no truth in them, nobody would believe any of it. But both are distorted enough that it writes out one half of the very important equation. You need to become yourself so that you can do something here, because collectively humanity will, in a way, save itself. But the only way to do that is to plug back into the light and the truth of this larger divine architecture. Because if you're disconnected from the wisdom of divinity and from these higher orders of consciousness, so to speak, you won't actually know who you are. You'll be deeply confused because you live in a place that's fairly dark. If you haven't noticed, you live in a place where there are dark intelligences that have worked very hard to take your collective consciousness and move it in such a direction that it is so deeply confused, it goes in the exact opposite trajectory of who you actually are. That's taken a very long time to set up, but it's already architected and in place. That's why you are so confused so often. The only way out of the confusion, the only way out of the soulless, endless treadmill of chasing safety or chasing desires that aren't even yours is to plug back into divinity. And this is, in a way, what the traditional religions are trying to preserve, the truth they are trying to preserve, the truth they are trying to pass down to their children. This is what many crazy lunatic Christian parents are trying to preserve and pass down for future generations is that there's an external light. And if you don't interface with that external light, you immediately lose yourself. And it's far too easy to be overly inflated and to assume that all of your adolescent desires that are externally programmed by darkness are your birthright. It's too easy to become so distorted that you go down the path of darkness thinking that it's light. And if you haven't noticed, that's what most of mainstream spirituality has turned into. Manifestation has taken a central role as a core spiritual theme where you are powerful, you are now God. There's no external higher wisdom to tap into to find the truth of who you are. No, take any desire, no matter who put it there, and go get it because you deserve it. It's manipulation at its finest. The sad truth is that every spiritual population is in some way being gaslit. There are pieces that are so fundamentally wrong that you lose sight of the point of spirituality, which is to plug into the truth of light and to find who you actually are, to become who you actually are, and to do the thing you are actually here to do. You don't become who you are in mainstream spirituality, chasing adolescent desires and trying to ensure your safety by thinking positively. That's not spirituality. That's darkness. Rebranded. And you don't do what you came here to do by waiting for a historical figure to come back and to do it all for everybody. That's also not spirituality. That's a manipulated version of something that may or may not have ever been true. But the thing that your ancestors called God is still within you. You can feel that there is a larger organizational force to reality that is light, that you can pull wisdom from that you shouldn't have access to. There is wisdom that goes beyond your neural circuitry and beyond your experience, and that is the guiding force of reality that is light. And it is only by following that light, by trusting that light over what other people think about you, over what you may fear, it's only by following that light that you find the truth of who you are. And it takes a while, an uncomfortable amount of time, to be able to liberate yourself from the collective psychosis that has written God, divinity, out of the entire picture and tried to still make sense of reality. How do we make sense of reality without this larger organizational force, even though it is within everything? That's been what most people are trying to do, and of course it's impossible. Of course you end up confused. Of course you end up without yourself at the end. Of course you end up in a midlife crisis somewhere, still searching, still asking questions that seem to have no answers. How are so many people lost? Because they have written out their intuition, and they have written out their actual experiential connection to light itself. The only thing here in your reality that matters. The only thing that you can for sure know to be true. That is where all of the hope comes from. Truthfully, looking at the timelines of what's most likely to happen for Earth, the future is never ever fixed. But looking at what's most likely to happen, there is a sense of things going well in the long run. And there are some speed bumps, and there are some things that are rather uncomfortable and not great. But the hope comes from individuals being able to dial into their intuition, being able to trust themselves, find themselves, and do what they actually came here to do. There's a population that this message resonates with that we call the cutting edge. And it's actually a fairly small population. Most people don't resonate with these ideas because they can't feel the same thing within them. because they're not here to play these roles. But if you already acknowledge your intuition to some degree, then we can very safely say the entire point of your being here is to play this role as the cutting edge, to future pace in a way what's possible for the collective and to bring a divine intelligence specifically to Earth. You are here to take something from this external organizational force that is divinity, download it within your being, and to press it out into reality for the rest of your life. It's the only reason why you're here, is to play this role, to become an embodiment of the future that then pulls Earth forward. This is why you don't really fit in anywhere. And this is why you're so obsessed with many of these questions. This is why you can feel that there's something wrong with the belief systems of what most people seem to think are completely okay. Because you have access that right now in this era of human history, most people don't. And divinity, from the other side, is trying to press you through an experiential sequence to prepare you to be able to do what you came here to do. This is why spirituality has been so important to you for so long. Because divinity is specifically looking at this population saying, hey, we need the cutting edge to be able to tap into their intuition, to be able to do what they came here to do, or Earth won't move forward. Or they won't inform culture and eventually tradition. There is a fairly long sequence of events that need to happen for things to be okay here, and it's fairly likely. But the direction that Earth is going is not toward waiting for a savior, and is also not toward becoming the savior. It's about recognizing that God is very real, that light is very real, and that darkness is very real. And that this sort of spiritual battle that's been described by nearly every culture is very, very real. And that this secular scientific worldview that's been taking over more and more and more, especially throughout culture, misses the point. Misses the single most important point of your reality. That you, as light, are here being gaslit by darkness to turn yourself away from the only thing that really matters to you as a soul, which is your real-time personal connection to divinity. That's why everything else feels off. That's why it's difficult just to put your head down and do what you're supposed to do, because there is this deep, nagging feeling within you that everything is wrong. The way forward is to be able to trust the peace within you, to be able to trust the stillness within you, and to be able to prioritize your intuition more and more and more through time. Because as much as you are pursuing spirituality, divinity is in a way pursuing you. Divinity is trying to update your neural circuitry, is trying to update your worldview through time, to undo the gaslighting of darkness so you can see reality as it actually is. So you can witness yourself in contact, in constant communion with divinity, with light, in a world that's largely run by darkness. And as you see that more and more, and as you trust your own connection more and more, you become more and more of yourself as an individual and less of the world around you. And at some point, there are these thresholds within this journey where divinity says, hey, here's some of what you're here to do. Here's your life's work. Here's the intelligence that you're actually here to bring to Earth. Getting to that point is the entire purpose of all of spirituality. It's everything you've always been called to from the moment your spiritual curiosity started. That ferociousness within you is aimed toward that actual destination, that very real, very possible destination. And much of mainstream spirituality and Christianity both will be distractions for you. There are a lot of people here who are designed, in a way, to play the role of tradition or culture, to do the things that are currently here. Their values as a soul match enough that that's why they are here. And when they interface with divinity, when they interface with that deep stillness within them, they have experiences of light. Light essentially says, keep going. Do what you're doing. Play your role. There's not this constant, ferocious call to develop their intuition, to prioritize spirituality above everything else. There's not this constant feeling that they're so deeply out of place here. This is something that's incredibly unique to this population we call the cutting edge, and this is an incredibly unique role. There aren't many messages here for you. There aren't many things built for you here. There's not really a place for you in this world. And any place that you're really ever going to have is going to be something that at some point you create. You are here to build your own place within this world, to architect something new that Earth has been praying for a very long time. You are the answer to the prayers of yesterday. You're the beginning of it. And there will be people who are here to implement much of what you're here to bring to the world. Your role in particular, this intuitive spiritual refinement, is one of the major focuses of darkness. Darkness wants to eradicate you from your role, wants to crush you into oblivion, wants to keep you from accessing the truth of who you actually are. It is unusually difficult here for the cutting edge, and much of the cutting edge is largely dormant, hopeless, depressed, feels terribly out of place. And the only way to reconcile all of this, the only way to get through these feelings, is to at some point acknowledge the truth that you already know within your being, that you are out of place because darkness doesn't want you here, that you are out of place because you have a role here to play, that there are things here for you to do, energies here for you to move through, ideas here for you to land, energetic embodiments for you to land, intuitive messages to parse through time. There is a transformational sequence ahead, and the quicker you get through it, the faster you get to everything that you've always wanted, which is to do what you were here to do. The only way to get there is to lean in and pursue the transformational sequence that you already know is here for you, that you already know is being guided by an external higher light authority, that larger organizational network of God itself. This transformational sequence is bringing you into contact with who you actually are. And in the process, you're shedding a lot of fear and a lot of misconception, and it's rather uncomfortable. That's okay. At some point, you have to be able to acknowledge that nothing is wrong with you, that you are only out of place because you have a unique role here to play, that you are ahead, not behind, that you are jacked directly into God, and that things are going to be okay. Will you be able to acknowledge this truth within you? It may take some time. And in a way, that's the transformational sequence, is to be able to acknowledge these truths within you over time through experience, seeing that you're not crazy, trusting your intuition and watching things go right, even though everything within you, all of your fears and worries and doubts, thought everything would fall apart. Experientially learning that divinity is actually real, actually valid, and the things that you actually believe and have believed for a very long time are true. It's not your delusion. It's not your spiritual hope. It's not a convenient worldview to make you feel emotionally better. It's the actual truth that you feel deep within you and have always known. In a very real way. And this is really the point of this larger transmission. In a very real way, you as the cutting edge are the reason why you feel that little sliver of hope, even though most of the collective feels as though things are going down the drain. In a very real way, you as the cutting edge are that sliver of hope. The only way for humanity to do well into the future, all of the timelines that go well, which again are fairly likely, every single one of those future timelines where things are good involves direct divine intervention. And the way that divinity intervenes is through individuals like you, is through individuals who have prioritized refining that intuitive connection over everything else in life. And it's a fairly small percentage of the population, but you as the cutting edge who feel it within yourself and have always felt it within yourself to play this role, you are here specifically to do this, to be a part of the divine intervention. The hope that you feel within your being is, in a way, you. In a way, mainstream spirituality is absolutely right. You are the ones you've been waiting for. But the only way to be that is with God. The only way to be that is with an external wisdom that is light. That's the pathway there. And the more that this idea reconciles over time, the more that your worldview settles into what you already know to be true, the easier it is not to be so distracted when others are saying, wait, he's coming back, everything's going to be okay. Or just stay positive, our thoughts collectively are going to create a better reality. When you hear these things, it's very important that you understand that they are fundamentally untrue, that they're only half-truths, and that the only real pathway forward for humanity rests in the hands of the cutting edge playing their role, refining their intuition, leaning into the transformational sequence that divinity itself is pressing them on. Because the cutting edge is the current divine intervention happening on the planet. And if the cutting edge doesn't play their role, then culture won't be able to play their role of taking what the cutting edge brings here and implementing it over time. Then tradition won't be able to play its role of preserving the things that are good over time. All of the change that's lined up to happen for Earth, all of the divine intervention that's going to be happening here for the next 300 to 500 years, right now rests in the hands of the cutting edge. And it's very, very important that those of you who already have this refined internal connection, who already hear the voice of God within your being, acknowledge that that's actually what you're doing and play the role you're here to play. So with that, it's a pleasure as always to be able to be here, to share these ideas and perspectives. We look forward to speaking at a later time, and we hope you found some semblance of cognitive resolution and emotional resolution. We hope you found some words to articulate the things that you already know to be true within you. With that, so much love to you, and we'll speak to you at a later time. Bye for now.